Eventually, during the Clinton years, our government made a secret pact with Saudi Arabia and Pakistan to end the chaos in Afghanistan by introducing a new force called the Taliban.
What difference at this point does it make?
They think we've made the political decision that here's the problem. You have no intention of leaving, and everybody else in the country, except those who are really finely tuned, which is a very limited audience, thinks we've already done that.
One observation, the room is almost empty.
We're not ready, we're not capable of receiving direct assistance, and after recommendations from GAO to mitigate all identified risks before proceeding with direct assistance, USAID apparently continued anyway without regard to these warnings. Why did USAID continue to provide direct assistance despite the warnings? And are there any other instances where USAID has ignored recommendations?
We noted that our private security in Afghanistan appears to be a major source of payoffs to the Taliban. Our report has the first official statement that it's the second largest source of money to the Taliban.
After drugs.
After drugs, that's right.
Been more money spent on Afghanistan Reconstruction than the Marshall Plan?
By the end of this year, taking into consideration inflation, etc.
So what's the total amount? As you analyze the data, what's the total amount spent by this country on Afghanistan Reconstruction?
But the appropriations on Afghanistan Reconstruction is $103 billion, I believe.
And for both of you, as you analyze what we refer to as waste, fraud, and abuse, but fraud and abuse ultimately is waste as well. From all of the, Mr. Johnson, from all of the good reports that you've put out, is there a total? Is there a total amount of that $103 billion? Is there a total amount that's been wasted?
I'm not in a position to give you an exact figure on that. That's something we haven't looked in depth at in terms of a range of figures, but we do know that there's been some various inefficiencies. There's some concerns about is there really an inventory of everything for us to note that. The biggest problem is that many of the agencies weren't keeping good performance metrics for us to look at whether or not the money had been used for its intended purpose of met its goals. So that's hard to do.
I agree. We can't come up with an estimate. It would take us, we'd be spending all of our time trying to figure out what was lost in the past. We're looking forward. I think it's safe to say a lot of money has been wasted, probably more wasted than actually stolen. And that's the problem. And I think going back, if we don't even know where the money was spent, Congressman, I would love to tell you 50%, 60%, 70%, whatever, but I live, unfortunately, in the world of GAGAS, generally accepted government accounting standards, and I can't say that. And I know my good colleague over in Iraq Reconstruction once came up with a number, and it was later shown to be wrong or nothing supporting it. I can't say that. I look at specific programs, and the specific programs we can say they succeeded or didn't succeed, or they run a risk. A lot of times we're going in and alerting people that you run a risk of fraud or waste or abuse. So, and I assume my colleague from GAO has the same. We can't come in and say they've lost X amount or they've succeeded. Now, we have identified some successes. And actually I asked, and I think the last time I testified before another committee, I said I sent a letter to the Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, and head of AID said, give me your success stories and why. And I thought that would be used, if we could use that in our analysis of lessons learned. But I just can't answer that question, because I don't have a basis for saying what percentage worked or didn't.
Let me just tell you the consequences of not being able to answer that question. I'm picking up where you left off. It says to the public, by implication, all of it was wasted. If you can't cite metrics, not anecdotal, but metrics, 30% absolutely went to the purpose intended and is performing well. Another 20% is sort of in a little grayer category, and then 50% is wasted, or whatever the metrics may be. But if the answer is I can't answer that question at all, then it suggests to the United States taxpayer $103 billion in reconstruction was down the drain in Afghanistan, 100%.
I cited a report done by AID in 1988, and it's a lessons learned report on AID's operations in Afghanistan from 1950 to 1979. Well, I couldn't find anybody in our embassy or anybody at AID who had ever read it.